The percussion started at dawn. Commander Lysander Voss pressed his scarred knuckles against the observation deck's reinforced glass, watching the alien encampment sprawl across what had once been downtown Phoenix. 3 months since the hegemony's arrival, 3 months since their crystalline ships had descended like metallic locusts, and still the bastards thought they owned Earth. "Sir, the drumming's getting louder," reported Lieutenant Kira Nix, her cybernetic eye whirring as it focused on the human settlements beyond the city limits. "It's not just the Apache reservation anymore. We're picking up rhythms from 12 different sectors." Voss nodded grimly. The drums had begun to weeks ago, a low, primal beating that seemed to emerge from the Earth itself, the hegemony's pale, chitinous occupiers had initially dismissed it as primitive noise-making, the death throes of a conquered species. They couldn't have been more wrong. Dr. Elena Mordaunt burst through the command center doors, her lab coat stained with coffee in desperation. "Commander, you need to see this. The quantum resonance readings, they're off the charts. The drumming isn't random, it's a pattern, a complex mathematical sequence that's somehow interfacing with the planet's electromagnetic field." "Speak plainly, Doctor. The drums are waking something up, something that's been sleeping in Earth's core for millions of years." Her hands trembled as she pulled up holographic data streams. "The hegemony's harvesting operations are triggering a planetary defense mechanism. Every beat is synchronizing with tectonic frequencies, creating a harmonic cascade that..." An explosion rattled the bunker through the reinforced walls. They could hear the chittering alarm calls of hegemony's shock troops. Voss grabbed his plasma rifle, muscle memory from 20 years of warfare taking over. The Third Terran War had ended badly for humanity, but it had taught them one crucial lesson: never surrender. "Status report." He barked into his comm unit. Captain Marcus Torn's voice crackled back through static. "They're mobilizing everything, sir. Looks like our little drum circle has them spooked. 3 battalions of bone dancers heading toward the Cherokee settlement in the Rockies. The bone dancers, the hegemony's elite death squads, 9 feet of surgically enhanced nightmare, wrapped in adaptive armor. They'd earned their name during the siege of New Moscow, where they built sculptures from human skeletons. If they were moving against the drum circles, it meant the aliens were truly afraid. Through the observation deck, Voss watched a formation of hegemony skimmers streak across the desert sky, their anti-grav engines leaving trails of ionized air. Below them, the human refugee camps continued their relentless percussion. Men, women, and children sat in vast circles, their hands bloody from hours of continuous drumming on makeshift instruments, metal sheets, overturned buckets, pieces of concrete and rebar. "They don't understand," whispered Private Yuki Tanaka, barely 18 and already carrying shrapnel scars from the occupation's early days. "The drums aren't weapons. They're communion." Voss studied the young soldier's face. Like many of her generation, Tanaka had been born during the slow apocalypse that preceded the hegemony's arrival. The climate wars, the resource conflicts, the gradual breakdown of civilization. These kids had grown up with their backs against the wall. They learned to find strength in the strangest places. "What do you mean? Communion?" "My grandmother always said, the Earth remembers everything, every footstep, every heartbeat, every act of love or violence. She said if you listen carefully enough, you could hear it singing back." Tanaka's voice carried an odd certainty. "The drums aren't making noise, sir. They're answering something that's been calling to us all along." A new tremor shook the bunker, stronger this time. In the distance, Voss could see cracks appearing in the hegemony's crystal towers, their perfect geometric surfaces beginning to show stress fractures. The aliens had chosen Earth for its rich mineral deposits and strategic location, but they'd made a fundamental miscalculation. They thought humanity was just another conquered species, primitives with crude technology and scattered resistance. They hadn't understood that humans weren't just living on Earth, they were part of it, woven into its electromagnetic signature through millions of years of evolution. The drumming was a rebellion. It was recognition. The planet was finally waking up, and it remembered who belonged here. The first Bone Dancer patrol reached the Cherokee settlement at precisely 06 for 7 hours, their adaptive camouflage shimmering like heat mirages against the dawn sky. 53 humans sat in a perfect circle around a massive fire pit, their hands moving in synchronized rhythm against drums carved from ancient oak. Elder Joseph Crowfeather never stopped drumming, even as the alien death squad materialized from the tree line. His weathered fingers, gnarled from decades of traditional craftsmanship, maintained the steady heartbeat pattern that had echoed through these mountains. For 3 days straight, seashore noise-making commanded the lead bone dancer through its translation matrix. The creature stood nearly 10 feet tall, its exoskeleton a masterpiece of bioengineering that incorporated harvested bone fragments from previous campaigns. Spinal columns from Altarian rebels formed decorative ridges along its arms. Human femurs had been grafted into its shoulder guards during the siege of Berlin. The drumming continued. Final warning, Primitive, Crowfeather's grandson, David, was home on leave from the Resistance's 5th Mountain Division. His service rifle lay within arm's reach, but his hands never left the drum. The rhythm had become everything: heartbeat, breathing, the pulse of electricity through neural pathways. To stop drumming would be to stop being human. The bone dancer raised its plasma lance. That's when the earth beneath its feet began to sing. A harmonic resonance erupted from the ground itself, a deep bass note that made the alien's exoskeleton vibrate like a tuning fork. The creature stumbled, its sensory apparatus overloading as frequencies beyond its comprehension flooded the electromagnetic spectrum. Around the circle, the human drummers continued their pattern, their faces serene despite the chaos erupting. Around them, open fire. The bone dancer commander chittered. Plasma bolts lanced through the morning air, but the energy beams bent away from their targets as if deflected by an invisible field. The drumming had created a localized distortion in space-time, a bubble of altered physics where the normal rules no longer applied. David Crowfeather watched in amazement as a plasma bolt curved around his grandmother's head, the deadly energy dissipating harmlessly into the forest. He'd studied quantum mechanics at Colorado Tech before the occupation, but this was beyond theoretical physics. This was something older, something that predated human understanding of science. The bone dancers opened up with kinetic weapons, good old-fashioned bullets that couldn't be deflected by electromagnetic anomalies. The round struck home, punching through human flesh with wet, meaty impacts. 7 drummers fell in the first volley, their blood soaking into the sacred ground. But the drumming never stopped. As each person fell, their neighbors closed the gaps, maintaining the circle's integrity. Children picked up the rhythm from their dying parents. Elders drummed with their final breaths. The pattern held, sustained by collective will and desperate necessity. The second volley claimed 12 more lives. Maria Santos, a nurse from the Phoenix Underground, took 3 rounds to the chest, but kept drumming until her hands finally went slack. Her 7-year-old son immediately took her place, his small fist striking the drum with mechanical precision. Despite the tears streaming down his face, "Why won't they die properly?" snarled one of the bone dancers. The answer came as a subsonic rumble that made the mountain itself tremble. Deep beneath the earth, something vast and ancient was stirring. The drumbeat had penetrated through bedrock and magma, reaching down to touch the planet's molten heart. And the heart was responding. Geysers of superheated steam erupted around the alien patrol, turning the forest clearing into a scalding hellscape. The bone dancer's adaptive armor began to fail as temperatures soared beyond design specifications. Their biomechanical components, evolved for the cold vacuum of space, couldn't cope with Earth's primal fury. Tactical withdrawal, the commander ordered, but its words were lost in a roar of geological awakening. The mountain split open beneath the lead bone dancer's feet, revealing a chasm filled with molten rock and primordial gases. The creature fell screaming into the Earth's burning embrace, its harvested bone trophies finally returning to the planet that had birthed them. Of the 12-member death squad, only 3 made it back to their skimmers. They fled into the sky trailing smoke and terror, their perfect formations broken by panic. Behind them, the human circle continued its relentless drumming, the surviving 21 members maintaining the rhythm that had saved their settlement and claimed their first victory against the occupiers. Elder Crowfeather finally looked up from his drum, his ancient eyes reflecting the glow of volcanic fire. The mountain had opened like a flower, revealing chambers and passages that predated human civilization. In the depths, something moved, not malevolent, but protective. "Awaken. The earth remembers," he whispered, his voice carrying over the geological symphony, "and now it knows who its children are." The hegemony's response was swift and merciless. Within 6 hours of the Cherokee incident, orbital bombardment platforms began targeting every confirmed drum circle across North America. Kinetic impactors screamed down from the void, each tungsten rod carrying the force of a tactical nuclear weapon. But the planet itself seemed to be learning. Commander Voss watched through satellite feeds as the first bombardment struck the Lakota Reservation in South Dakota. The kinetic round punched through the atmosphere at 12 kilometers per second, its trajectory perfectly calculated to obliterate the 300 drummers. Gathered around their sacred fire, the impact never came. Instead, the tungsten rod simply stopped 500 meters above the target. It hung motionless in midair as if caught by an invisible hand. Around the drum circle, the air itself had become crystalline, forming geometric patterns that defied physics. The kinetic weapon's massive energy was being absorbed, channeled, and redirected into the growing network of harmonic frequencies that now span continents. How is this possible? Dr. Mordaunt stared at the readings flooding her instruments. The energy signature is consistent with a planetary defense grid. But Earth does have one, interrupted a new voice. Dr. Kofi Asani, the exogeologist who'd been studying core samples before the invasion, stepped into the command center with trembling hands. We just never recognized it. The magnetic field, the tectonic plates, the resonance cavities in the upper mantle, it's all connected. The planet is a living organism. And where its immune system, another orbital strike, this time targeting the Maori communities in New Zealand. Same result, the kinetic impactor froze mid-descent, its destructive energy absorbed into the growing symphonic network. On every continent, drums answered drums. Aboriginal song lines in Australia, talking drums in West Africa, ceremonial percussion from the Amazon basin, humanity's oldest forms of communication. We're awakening something that had slumbered since the planet's formation. The hegemony escalated. Bioweapons descended on Mexico City. Engineered viruses designed to target human DNA. The aerosol canisters burst open over the drumming crowds, releasing clouds of microscopic death. But the viral agents found no purchase. The harmonic frequencies had altered human cellular structure at the quantum level, making their genetic code incompatible with the alien bioweapons. Chemical attacks followed. Nerve agents that could kill in seconds were dispersed over the drum circles in Eastern Europe. The chemicals fell like toxic rain, but where they touched human skin, they simply evaporated. The drummers had become something more than human, their bodies resonating with planetary frequencies that neutralized foreign substances. In desperation, the hegemony deployed their planet crackers, massive fusion devices designed to shatter worlds from core to surface. 3 were positioned at strategic points around Earth's equator. Their combined detonation calculated to split the planet like a rotten fruit. That's when humanity showed the aliens what true desperation looked like. Resistant cells that had been hiding in the ruins of civilization emerged in coordinated strikes across 6 continents. Not to attack the planet crackers, that would be suicide. Instead, they targeted every hegemony listening post, communication relay, and surveillance station simultaneously. Led by fighters like Captain Torn's urban guerrillas in Detroit and Commander Elena Vasquez's mountain wolves in the Andes, humanity's survivors gave everything they had to ensure the aliens couldn't coordinate their planet-killing strike. The battles were savage and brief. In the flooded tunnels beneath Amsterdam, Dutch resistance fighters detonated homemade explosives that brought down entire sections of the city, crushing hegemony command posts beneath millions of tons of concrete and steel. 47 humans died in those tunnels, but their sacrifice silenced the alien communication network across Western Europe. In the Australian outback, Aboriginal trackers led hegemony patrols into carefully prepared kill zones where the desert itself became a weapon. Shifting sands, venomous creatures, and the crushing heat of the continental interior claimed hundreds of alien troops. The human casualties were equally severe, entire bloodlines extinguished in a single afternoon, but the planet cracker in the Pacific Ocean lost its targeting data. The most desperate battle occurred in orbit itself. Astronaut Yuki Nakamura, stranded on the International Space Station since the invasion began, had been building improvised weapons from scientific equipment and spare parts. When the planet crackers began their final countdown sequence, she made a decision that would have seemed impossible 3 months earlier. Using the station's emergency escape pods as kinetic weapons, Nakamura launched herself directly at the nearest planet cracker. Her pod's limited fuel gave her just enough velocity to reach the device's sensor array. She had 15 seconds of life support remaining when she manually triggered the pod's emergency beacon, a focused electromagnetic pulse that scrambled the planet cracker's targeting systems. Nakamura died in the cold vacuum of space, but her sacrifice saved 3 billion lives. the planet crackers fired blindly, their fusion warheads detonating harmlessly in empty space. The hegemony's ultimate weapon had been defeated not by superior technology, but by the absolute commitment of individuals who refused to let their world die. On Earth's surface, the drumming intensified. Every human settlement now participated in the global rhythm, their combined voices creating a harmonic frequency that reached deep into the planet's core. The resonance was building toward something unprecedented, a crescendo that would determine whether Earth remained a living world or became another dead rock. In the hegemony's expanding empire, the aliens were beginning to understand that they hadn't conquered a primitive species. They'd awakened something ancient, powerful, and utterly committed to survival. The hegemony's high command convened in the crystalline war spire that floated above the ruins of Geneva. Fleet Admiral Ixithus, whose carapace bore the conquest scars of 14 worlds, studied the tactical hologram with growing unease. The primitive planet should have been pacified within standard rotation cycles, but instead, the indigenous population had somehow weaponized their world itself. Recommendation: immediate planetary sterilization, chittered Warcast Prime Velthara. Her biomechanical augmentations clicking with predatory hunger. Deploy the erasure protocol. Turn their rock into sterile glass. Negative, Ixithus replied, his command tentacles manipulating data streams with precise movements. Intelligence confirms this planet contains the largest deposits of quantum crystalline ore. In this galactic sector, we need those resources intact for the next phase of expansion. No. We adapt our strategy. The new plan was elegant in its brutality. Systematic extermination of human breeding populations while preserving the drumming networks. The hegemony would harness Earth's defensive capabilities for their own use, turning humanity's awakened planet into a weapon against their next targets. Death pods descended on nurseries and schools across the globe. The aliens had analyzed the drumming patterns and identified a crucial weakness. The network required conscious participation. Children were too young to maintain the complex rhythms, making them vulnerable targets whose elimination would cripple future resistance. In Manchester, England, former SAS operator turned resistance leader Malcolm Sterling received the alert through underground D channels. Hegemony forces were converging on the Fallowfield Primary School, where 200 children huddled in the basement, while their parents maintained drum circles on the surface. Sterling's team consisted of 12 fighters, teachers, shop clerks, university students who learned warfare in the burning streets of occupied cities. They had 43 minutes to evacuate 200 children. Before the death pods arrived, move with purpose, Sterling commanded as his team swept through the school's corridors. The building shook continuously from the overhead drumming, creating a surreal backdrop of desperate percussion and approaching death. Every child counts. Every second matters. The evacuation turned into a running battle as hegemony advanced scouts infiltrated the building. Sterling personally held the main stairwell, his salvaged plasma rifle cycling through alien power cells he'd torn from dead enemies. When the weapon finally overheated, he drew the ceremonial kukri his grandfather had carried in Burma and met the next wave of aliens with naked steel. The blade found gaps in their biomechanical armor, spilling phosphorescent blood across the school's polished floors. Sterling fell when a bone dancer's neural whip caught him across the throat, but he bought his team the time they needed. 193 children escaped through the old Victorian tunnel system beneath Manchester. 7 children didn't make it out. Similar scenarios played out across the planet. In Rio de Janeiro, favela dwellers transformed their intimate knowledge of urban warfare into a deadly maze of traps and ambushes. They saved 800 children, but lost entire bloodlines in the process. The Cordero family, 3 generations of resistance fighters died to the last member holding a single stairwell so that a school bus could reach the safety tunnels. In Tokyo, Yakuza clans put aside decades of rivalry to coordinate the largest civilian evacuation in human history. Using their networks of underground railways and hidden warehouses, they moved 30,000 children to safety beneath the city. The cost was measured in honor as much as blood clan bosses, who'd never bowed to anyone, knelt before hegemony. Interrogators, enduring torture to protect evacuation routes they'd never personally use. The most devastating assault occurred in Lagos, Nigeria. The hegemony had identified the city's drum networks as particularly sophisticated, their rhythms showing quantum-level precision that suggested advanced understanding of planetary harmonics. Rather than simply eliminating children, they decided to make an example that would break human morale permanently. The bioweapon deployed over Lagos was designed specifically for psychological warfare. It didn't kill quickly. Instead, it caused progressive neural degeneration that left victims conscious but helpless as their bodies shut down system by system. Children would remain aware as paralysis crept through their bodies, unable to speak or move, but capable of experiencing every sensation, until their respiratory systems finally failed. Dr. Amara Okafor had been developing quantum resonance therapy at the University of Lagos when the invasion began. Now she faced an impossible choice: maintain the drum circle that protected her city, or abandon her position to treat the poisoned children. She chose both. Working through the night as the bioweapon spread through pediatric wards, Okafor discovered that the drumming frequencies could be modulated to accelerate cellular repair. She taught the technique to every medical professional in the city, creating a network of healing that matched the rhythm of resistance. The cost was brutal: to maintain the healing frequencies while sustaining the defensive patterns required perfect synchronization among thousands of participants. When someone faltered from exhaustion or injury, the network developed gaps that the hegemony exploited ruthlessly. Okafor herself drummed for 6 to 7 hours straight, her hands reduced to bloody stumps as she refused to let Lagos's children die. She collapsed from exhaustion just as the last child was cured, her heart stopping from the strain. But her sacrifice had proven something crucial: humanity's connection to their planet wasn't just defensive, it was transformative. The aliens began to realize they were fighting more than guerrilla warfare. They were confronting an evolutionary leap in real time, watching a species adapt to their presence with terrifying speed. Each battle taught humanity new applications for their planetary bond. Each loss only strengthened their resolve. The tactical shift had achieved partial success. Thousands of human children were dead, their potential future contributions to the drum networks eliminated forever. But the survivors were changing, their neural patterns synchronizing with planetary frequencies in ways that defied biological precedent. The hegemony had wanted to break humanity's spirit through the systematic murder of innocents. Instead, they created something unprecedented in their conquests: a species willing to sacrifice everything to protect what they loved most, while simultaneously evolving beyond the limitations that had made them vulnerable in the first place. The final drumming convergence was set for the Yellowstone caldera, where geological surveys had detected the strongest harmonic resonance signatures on the planet. If humanity could synchronize their global rhythm at this location, the resulting energy release might permanently alter Earth's defensive capabilities. The hegemony committed everything to stop them. Fleet Admiral Xethus deployed his entire invasion force: 3 battle fleets, 14 assault legions, and every available war machine from orbit to ground level. If the primitives wanted to make their last stand at the throat of a supervolcano, he would oblige them with the full fury of hegemony military doctrine. 50,000 humans made the pilgrimage to Yellowstone. They came from every corner of the Earth: survivors from bombed cities, evacuees from poisoned farmlands, resistance fighters who'd abandoned their guerrilla campaigns for this single, desperate gamble. Many were wounded, most were malnourished. All were committed to the suicidal belief that their planet would respond if they called loudly enough. Commander Voss established the perimeter defense with grim efficiency. His composite force included regular military units, civilian militias, and indigenous warriors whose understanding of the drumming networks exceeded conventional tactical thinking. They had 3 days to prepare fortifications before the hegemony arrived in overwhelming. Orbital bombardment lit the sky with artificial suns as kinetic impactors hammered the human positions. But the drumming had already begun, and space-time itself was becoming unstable. Around the Yellowstone Basin, energy weapons bent away from their targets. Kinetic rounds lost velocity as they passed through zones of altered physics, and the hegemony's precision instruments went haywire as electromagnetic fields fluctuated beyond all measurement. The first ground assault came from the north to divisions of bone dancers supported by hover tanks and atmospheric fighters. They encountered the 501st Mountain Infantry, dug into positions carved from volcanic rock and reinforced with salvaged alien materials. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Brightwater, whose Lakota heritage had prepared her for warfare both conventional and spiritual, coordinated the defense through tactical drumming. Her communications weren't transmitted by radio, they were carried by harmonic frequencies. that passed through solid rock. When Alpha Company requested artillery support, she drummed the coordinates. When Bravo Squad reported enemy flanking movements, the information traveled through geological resonance faster than light speed. The Bone Dancers advanced in perfect formation. Their biomechanical bodies adapted for close combat in extreme environments. They conquered species across 23 star systems. Their tactical doctrine refined through centuries of successful campaigns. They were utterly unprepared for an enemy that could coordinate attacks through planetary consciousness. The first human casualties were devastating. Plasma lances punched through defensive positions, vaporizing soldiers in milliseconds. A single Bone Dancer could eliminate an entire squad before they could return fire. But for every human who fell, the drumming grew more intense, and the planet's response became more violent. Geysers erupted beneath alien formations, scalding superheated steam that dissolved biomechanical components. Tectonic shifts opened chasms that swallowed entire companies of hegemony troops. The very ground became unstable, as if the Earth itself was rejecting the invaders' presence. Captain Torn's urban guerrillas had positioned themselves in the geyser fields east of the main convergence site. When hegemony forces attempted to outflank the human positions, they found themselves navigating a landscape that changed by the minute. Thermal vents opened without warning. The ground temperature fluctuated between freezing and scalding, and the air itself became toxic as volcanic gases mixed with alien atmospheric processors. The battle in the geyser fields was particularly brutal. Torn's fighters used the unstable terrain to their advantage, luring hegemony troops into kill zones where the Earth's awakened geology did most of the killing. But the aliens adapted quickly, deploying atmospheric suits and seismic stabilizers that neutralized many environmental hazards. When conventional tactics failed, Torn made a decision that would haunt the survivors for generations. His team had been carrying stolen hegemony bioweapons since the siege of Detroit, planning to use them if all else failed. The weapons were designed to target alien physiology, but they were also virulently toxic to human tissue. Override safety protocols, Torn commanded, his voice steady despite the implications. Deploy the green packages on my mark. His team knew what he was asking. The bioweapons would kill every hegemony soldier in a 3-kilometer radius, but they would also contaminate the area for decades. Anyone involved in the deployment would die from exposure within hours. 12 volunteers stepped forward. The bioweapon canisters erupted across the geyser fields like deadly flowers, releasing clouds of engineered death that sought out alien genetic markers with predatory hunger. 3,000 hegemony troops died in convulsions as the weapons dissolved their biomechanical components from within. But the volunteers who deployed the canisters were also dying, their bodies breaking down at the cellular level. Torn held his position until his nervous system finally collapsed, maintaining tactical command through a radio headset even as blood poured from his ears and nose. His final transmission was coordinates for the next wave of bioweapon strikes, delivered in a voice that no longer recognized pain. The center of the battlefield had become a hellscape beyond description. 50,000 humans maintained their drumming circle around the Yellowstone caldera while battles raged on every side. Children as young as 8 sat next to combat veterans, all of them striking improvised instruments with bleeding hands. When drummers fell to enemy fire, their neighbors closed the gaps without missing a beat. The drumming itself had become a weapon. The harmonic frequencies were reaching deep into the caldera, where millions of years of geological pressure was building toward a catastrophic release. Every beat brought the supervolcano closer to an eruption that would reshape the continent. Fleet Admiral Ixithus, monitoring the battle from orbit, finally understood what the humans were attempting. They weren't just fighting for their planet, they were willing to destroy it rather than let it fall under alien control. All units, priority withdrawal, he commanded, but his order came too late. The Yellowstone caldera erupted with the force of 1,000 nuclear weapons, sending pyroclastic flows racing across the battlefield at 800 kilometers per hour. The explosion was visible from space, a column of fire and ash that punched through the atmosphere like a geological fist. But instead of random destruction, the eruption followed the drumming patterns. The pyroclastic flows curved around human positions while consuming everything alien in their path. The supervolcano had become Earth's immune system, sterilizing the infected landscape while preserving its defenders. When the fires finally died and the ash settled, 15,000 humans remained alive in the Yellowstone crater. The hegemony had lost an entire invasion force. Their bodies and machines buried under miles of volcanic debris. The planet had chosen its children, and the children had chosen their world. The volcanic eruption at Yellowstone sent shockwaves through both the Earth's crust and the hegemony's command structure. For the first time in their expansionist history, an entire invasion force had been eliminated not by superior technology, but by a planet's biological response to foreign contamination. Fleet Admiral Exithus faced an unprecedented decision aboard his flagship, the Bone Cathedral, as it maintained orbit above the ash-clouded Earth. Standard protocol demanded immediate retreat. The indigenous population had proven too dangerous to justify continued occupation, but intelligence analysis revealed something that changed the strategic equation entirely. The humans weren't just defending their world. They were transforming it into something that could threaten hegemony space itself. Dr. Mordaunt, working from her makeshift laboratory in the Yellowstone crater, had discovered the true scope of what they'd unleashed. The drumming network wasn't simply awakening Earth's defensive systems, it was creating a quantum entanglement field that connected every inhabited world within a 50 light-year radius. The implications are staggering, she explained to the surviving commanders during their emergency briefing. The group met in a natural amphitheater formed by cooling lava, where the air still shimmered with residual heat from the eruption. Every planet with indigenous life is showing harmonic resonance patterns. The drumming isn't just local anymore, it's galactic. Commander Voss studied the data through exhausted eyes. He'd lost weight during the siege, his uniform hanging loose on a frame worn down by months of desperate warfare. Around them, the surviving defenders maintained their rhythm even during the briefing, their hands moving in synchronized patterns that had become as natural as breathing. What does that mean for us tactically? It means we're not alone. Dr. Mordaunt's voice carried a mix of wonder and terror. There are other species out there, other worlds that have been subjugated by the hegemony, and they're all starting to wake up. The revelation came through intercepted hegemony communications across their empire. Subject worlds were reporting spontaneous uprisings. Species that had been conquered decades earlier were suddenly displaying coordinated resistance movements. Planets that had been strip-mined and abandoned were showing signs of ecological regeneration that defied scientific explanation. The drumming had become a galactic awakening, but the hegemony's response was equally unprecedented. High Command authorized the deployment of their most forbidden weapon, the silence makers. These were reality-warping devices that didn't just destroy matter and energy. They erased the quantum information that allowed consciousness to exist. Anything touched by silence maker emanations would cease to have ever existed, creating a retroactive void in space-time itself. 3 silence makers descended toward Earth like drops of liquid night, their event horizon swallowing light and matter with hungry indifference. Traditional physics broke down and their presence-time flowed backward in random eddies. Causality loops created paradox cascades, and the fundamental constants of the universe became negotiable. Elder Joseph Crowfeather has survived the Cherokee settlement massacre, his mountain stronghold now serving as a coordination center for the global drumming network. But the 93-year-old medicine man understood something that escaped even Dr. Mordaunt's quantum calculations. The drumming wasn't about physics. It was about relationship. The Earth doesn't belong to us, he explained to the emergency council, his weathered hands never stopping their rhythm against the sacred drum. We belong to it, and through it, we belong to everything else that lives. The final convergence required more than synchronization, it demanded sacrifice on a scale that tested humanity's commitment to survival itself, to generate the harmonic frequencies necessary to neutralize the silence makers. Every human being on the planet would need to participate simultaneously, no exceptions, number reserves, no safety margins. The global coordination was a marvel of desperate ingenuity. Resistance cells established quantum entanglement communication networks using salvage hegemony technology. Underground broadcasters transmitted timing signals through tectonic resonance chambers. Children too young to understand the science memorized rhythm patterns with the accuracy of metronomes. When the moment came, 7 billion humans began drumming as one. The sound wasn't audible in any conventional sense, it existed below the threshold of hearing, in the quantum foam where consciousness interfaced with reality, but its effects were immediately visible from orbit. The planet's magnetic field began pulsing in perfect synchronization, creating electromagnetic standing waves that propagated faster than light across the galaxy. The first silence maker simply stopped existing. Its reality-warping field collapsed inward, creating a brief moment of absolute nothingness before quantum mechanics rushed in to fill the void. The second device experienced temporal displacement, its destruction happening before its deployment as causality loops unraveled its own timeline. The third silence maker reached Earth's atmosphere before the drumming neutralized its exotic matter core. Its death released enough energy to sterilize a continent, but the explosion was absorbed into the planetary resonance network and redistributed as harmonic enhancement. The destruction became creation, channeled through the collective consciousness of a species that refused to accept extinction. Fleet Admiral Ixithus watched his ultimate weapons fail with something approaching religious awe. In 500 years of military service, he'd never encountered resistance that operated outside the known laws of physics. The humans had achieved something that challenged the fundamental assumptions of hegemony tactical doctrine. They'd weaponize love itself, all units, full retreat, he commanded. His decision carrying the weight of absolute finality marked this system as forbidden space. No hegemony vessel is to approach within 10 light-years of this world. But as his fleet prepared to enter hyperspace, long-range sensors detected something that made his chitinous skin crawl with ancestral fear. The harmonic resonance wasn't limited to Earth anymore. Every inhabited world in hegemony space was beginning to pulse with the same rhythm, as if the galaxy itself had found its heartbeat. The humans hadn't just defended their planet. They'd started a revolution that would reshape the cosmic order, one drumbeat at a time. 6 months after the Silence Maker defeat, Ambassador HFY of the Vegan Confederacy became the first official alien representative to land on Earth since the invasion began. Her ship touched down in the Yellowstone crater, where the global drumming network had established its primary convergence site. The landscape had transformed beyond recognition. Where volcanic devastation should have created a barren wasteland, impossible gardens bloomed in soil enriched by ash and alien blood. The crater walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that matched the rhythm of the continuing drum circles. Trees grew in geometric spirals that seemed to resonate with quantum frequencies, their leaves shimmering with colors that existed outside the normal spectrum. Commander Voss, now bearing the title of Earth's first speaker, greeted the vegan delegation with the same weathered pragmatism that had carried him through the occupation. But his eyes held depths that hadn't existed before the awakening, a connection to something vast, an ancient that made him speak for more than just humanity. "Welcome to Earth," he said, his words carrying harmonics that resonated in the crystalline formations growing throughout the crater. "We've been expecting you." Ambassador HFY's species had evolved from aquatic stock on a world of endless oceans. Her translucent skin revealed the bioluminescent organs that served as both communication devices and emotional displays. Currently, those organs pulsed with patterns that indicated profound unease mixed with desperate hope. "The drumming," she said, her voice. Dr. Mordaunt, her lab coat replaced by ceremonial robes woven from volcanic glass fibers, stepped forward with data tablets that hummed with quantum interference. The electromagnetic fields generated by the ongoing drumming made conventional electronics unreliable, but the new biomechanical interfaces grew more responsive each day. "The cascade effect exceeded our most optimistic projections," she explained, her scientific training struggling to encompass realities that transcended measurement. "We're detecting harmonic awakening on over 400 worlds across 17 sectors. The hegemony's empire is experiencing what can only be described as an autoimmune response." The true scope of the transformation was still being cataloged. On Proxima Centauri b, the silicon-based crystalline collective had emerged from their 1,000-year hibernation, their song forms resonating with Earth's drumming and frequencies that shattered hegemony mining operations. The gas giant moons of Kepler 442 were producing aurora displays that spelled out mathematical equations, as if the planets themselves were attempting to communicate across interstellar distances. Most remarkably, species that had been extinct for millennia were showing signs of quantum resurrection. The Aldebaran whale singers, whose civilization had been sterilized by hegemony bioweapons 50 years earlier, had begun manifesting as energy patterns in their system's asteroid fields. Their songs, preserved in the quantum foam of dead worlds, were being amplified by the galactic drumming network. Elder Crowfeather, now recognized as the spiritual architect of humanity's survival, sat in his traditional place at the center of the crater's drum circle. At 93, the Cherokee medicine man had become something more than human, a living interface between Earth's consciousness and the growing galactic awareness. His weathered hands moved in patterns that seemed to conduct symphonies audible only to the planet itself. "The Earth spoke to me in dreams," he said, his voice carrying across the crater without electronic amplification. "It showed me the song that connects all living things." The hegemony heard only noise because they had forgotten how to listen. But life remembers. Life always remembers. Ambassador Ketheri's bioluminescent displays shifted to patterns of reverence. As she approached the drum circle, representatives from 18 other species had made similar pilgrimages, drawn by harmonics that transcended language and biology. The methane breathers of Titan, the quantum jellyfish from the Magellanic Clouds, the hive mind crystals of the Andromeda Galaxy, all of them seeking understanding of the phenomenon that had liberated their worlds from hegemony occupation. "We've come to learn," Ketheri admitted, her emotional displays cycling through patterns of humility and determination. "Our worlds are free, but we don't understand why. The drumming reaches us, but we can't reproduce the effect. Without human presence, the harmonic networks collapse within days." The answer lay in humanity's unique evolutionary path. Unlike species that had developed in isolation, humans had evolved in conscious partnership with their planet. Their neural patterns were quantum entangled with Earth's electromagnetic field at the cellular level. When they drummed, they weren't making music, they were speaking their world's native language. Dr. Mordaunt had spent months studying the phenomenon, her research complicated by the fact that the effect grew stronger with each passing day. Human consciousness was continuing to evolve, developing capabilities that existed beyond current scientific understanding. Children born after the awakening showed neural patterns that registered as small-scale reality distortions. They could influence probability through focused intention, communicate across interstellar distances through quantum entanglement, and interface directly with planetary consciousness. "We're becoming something new," she explained to the gathered ambassadors, "not just humans anymore, but Earth humans, Gaia humans, a species that carries their world's voice wherever they go." The implications were staggering. Humanity had become the immune system not just for Earth, but for the galaxy itself. Their presence on any world would awaken dormant consciousness, triggering defensive responses against exploitation and occupation. The hegemony's expansion had been permanently halted by a species they'd initially dismissed as primitive, but the victory came with sobering responsibilities. The galactic community that was emerging from hegemony ruins looked to Earth for guidance in maintaining the harmonic networks. Species that had been enslaved for centuries needed to relearn the art of planetary partnership. Worlds that had been strip-mined required conscious intervention to restore ecological balance. Commander Voss found himself coordinating relief efforts across 17 star systems while managing the complex politics of first contact with dozens of awakened species. The drumming that had saved Earth now provided the communication backbone for an interstellar alliance based on consciousness rather than technology. "We never wanted to be galactic leaders," he admitted during a private moment with Elder Crowfeather. As the sun set over the transformed crater, "We just wanted to survive." The old medicine man smiled, his eyes reflecting the bioluminescent patterns that now decorated the twilight sky. "That's what makes us worthy of the responsibility. We fought for love, not conquest. The Earth chose well." In the distance, the drumming continued, a rhythm that had grown from desperate resistance to become the heartbeat of a galaxy awakening to its own consciousness. Children played games that bent space-time, their laughter created aurora displays. In the upper atmosphere, adults worked in gardens where thoughts became seeds and dreams took root in quantum soil. The hegemony still existed, but their empire was contracting daily as world after world remembered how to sing. Their fleets retreated toward the galactic rim, seeking regions where the drumming couldn't reach. Some of their subject species had joined the awakening, while others had chosen isolation rather than face the implications of conscious evolution. On Earth, the transformation continued. The planet itself was becoming more alive, more aware, more capable of nurturing the conscious partnership that had saved it from destruction. Volcanic activity had stabilized into patterns that provided geothermal energy for rebuilt cities. Ocean currents carried nutrients to previously barren regions, creating new ecosystems optimized for human planetary collaboration. As the first stars appeared in the evening sky, Elder Crowfeather raised his hands from the sacred drum. For the first time in 6 months, The sudden silence felt profound, but not empty. The drumming continued in the quantum substrate of reality, maintained by the collective consciousness of a species that had learned to speak its world's language. "The song never ends," he whispered, his words carried across the crater by harmonics that existed beyond sound. "It just changes tempo. And now, the whole galaxy is learning to dance above them." The stars pulsed with rhythms that had traveled across impossible distances, each one a world awakening to the symphony of conscious life. Humanity had claimed their place not as conquerors, but as conductors of a cosmic orchestra that would play for eternity. The drums had saved Earth, but in the end, Earth had saved the galaxy.